Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the show. Got a good one for you here today, guys. We're going to be going over my super early PPR rankings. Now, obviously, we are a very long way away from the season, so these are subject to change, and they're probably going to change a lot. But as of right now, I want to set you guys a solid foundation for how we're going to look at the first round and who we're going to be taking with the early picks. So I'm going to start right here with the first player on my list, and that is Justin Jefferson. Now, Justin Jefferson, guys, saw 194 targets this season in 17 games. That is absolutely ridiculous. The target share for wide receivers has obviously gone up quite a bit. Justin Jefferson is a prime example of that. He saw over a 32% team target share. The entire offense in Minnesota runs through Justin Jefferson. And considering the fact that he's not going to slow down anytime soon because he's young and extremely talented and pretty much unstoppable, I think this guy is the easy number one pick in next year's fantasy draft. If you have the 101, just take Justin Jefferson. Next player on my list is going to be Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs had a great season. He averaged 19.8 PPR points a game. This dude was getting fed the rock like crazy in the most high-scoring, high-powered offense probably in the entire NFL, maybe right up there with the Chiefs. But bottom line is the Buffalo Bills put points on the board like crazy. Stefon Diggs is their number one weapon. And so with that being the case, I mean, what more do you have to think about? This dude is going to get a ridiculous target share and a completely unstoppable offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL in Josh Allen to throw him the ball. He is my number 2 overall pick for this coming season. Next player on my list, my first running back is going to be Austin Eckler. Now, Austin Eckler is a guy who he's just a touchdown machine. This dude is magnetically attracted to the end zone. He's scored 38 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons. And on top of this, he is one of the most elite PPR weapons I've ever seen. This is a running back who saw double-digit targets in 5 games last year. 5 games, Austin Eckler saw double-digit targets at the running back position. More than 10 targets in 5 games. That's absolutely crazy. Okay, so this guy is an absolute PPR machine. We know that he's going to rack up the reception totals, and we know that he's going to get in the end zone because of how heavily he's used when the Chargers get in the red zone. It's as if the Chargers just want Austin Eckler to score all their touchdowns. I don't know. This dude is an absolute touchdown scoring machine. He's totally unstoppable for PPR formats due to the ridiculous target share. So you can draft this dude with absolute confidence next season as the number 1 running back off the board. Next player on my list is going to be Cooper Kupp. Now, Cooper Kupp was having another historic season. It is really, truly unbelievable to see what Cooper Kupp has done in fantasy, with the past year and a half. Now, obviously, he missed the second half of this past season, but, until then, he was doing just as well as he was in the 2021 season. So it's pretty crazy to see what Cooper Kupp did in his year and a half of dominance. And, we're going to obviously have to keep an eye on, how Matt Stafford recovers over the offseason, how Cooper Kupp recovers over the offseason from his injury. But if they both come back at 100% full strength, and I think they will, Cooper Kupp could easily finish as the number 1 wide receiver again. As great as Justin Jefferson is, Justin Jefferson still has bust games. Cooper Kupp literally never, ever busts. It's pretty crazy to watch. So if he comes back at 100%, and we know that him and Stafford are 100% going into the season, I wouldn't be mad at you for taking Cooper Kupp over Justin Jefferson. It's pretty close. Next player on my list is going to be Christian McCaffrey. Now, Christian McCaffrey finished as the running back 2 in fantasy this year. And this is a guy who he started his season with Carolina. And, when he was in Carolina, he had no touchdown upside because the offense was absolutely terrible. So considering the fact that, the first half of the season, he was in an offense that really couldn't produce any touchdowns for him. The fact that he finished as a running back 2 is pretty amazing. The minute he went over to San Francisco, he started absolutely going off. He started getting in the end zone. He started racking up the PPR numbers like crazy, as I knew he would. And this was all with Elijah Mitchell cutting into his workload pretty significantly. There were games, plenty of games, where Elijah Mitchell actually outcarried Christian McCaffrey as far as yardage totals. So, considering the fact that he's going to have a whole offseason to work with the team, and he's probably going to operate as the team's number 1 running back next year, with probably at least a little bit less competition for touches. We got to see what happens with Elijah Mitchell. I like Christian McCaffrey as my number 2 running back off the board in the 2023 draft. And if he finished ahead of Austin Eckler, I wouldn't be all that surprised. Next player on my list is going to be Tyreek Hill. Now, my goodness gracious, I made a video in the preseason talking about how I thought Tyreek Hill was going to bust in the Dolphins offense. I could not have been any more wrong on this. Now, in that bust video, I got 4 out of my 5 guys right. 4 to the 5 that I had in there in my bust video ended up being a bust, but I had Tyreek Hill in there, and that was a huge miss, obviously. I mean, this dude had over 1,700 receiving yards this year. 1,700 receiving yards. He was literally better in the Dolphins offense than he was in the Chiefs offense, and I don't think anybody expected that. I definitely did not expect that whatsoever. But the fact of the matter is, the dude is an absolute weapon, and he's totally unstoppable because of his speed and incredible hands, route running abilities. I mean, this dude is arguably the most talented wide receiver in the entire NFL, and if I was starting a team and you could hand me one offensive weapon, I would pick Tyreek Hill. This dude is the man, and he is an easy first-round pick next year. Next player on my list is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. Now, Ja'Marr Chase only played 12 games this year, but look, this dude, 9 out of his 12 games he had double-digit targets. That's pretty darn impressive. Now, in his first season, his 2021 season, where he absolutely went off and lit the league on fire as a rookie, he actually did so with minimal target share. So I was saying going into the season that if Ja'Marr Chase sees an increased target share, he's going to be a monster. He has the upside to be the wide receiver 1. And who knows, if he stayed healthy, maybe he would have been. But in 12 games, he was still pretty darn good. And he is an easy first-round pick in next year's draft. Next player on my list is going to be Davante Adams. He finished as the wide receiver 3. He had 180 targets in 17 games. He was yet another wide receiver that averaged over 10 targets a game, which is completely ridiculous. But we're seeing this trend in fantasy now of number 1 wide receivers getting force-fed the ball like crazy in their offenses. So Davante Adams is no exception to this. He gets targeted like crazy. He is the clear target hog on the Raiders. We're going to have to see, kind of what happens with the quarterback situation over the offseason. We don't know for sure who's going to be playing quarterback for the Raiders, but no matter who is slinging the rock, I think Davante Adams is just so good that he's going to produce elite fantasy numbers no matter what. Next player on my list is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you guys haven't noticed, I have a ridiculous amount of wide receivers going in the first round next year. This is crazy, but like I said a few videos ago, the dynamic of fantasy football has really changed a lot, and wide receivers are just way more dominant than they've ever been because of the increased target share. So I don't know what to say. I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers that are going to go in the first round in next year's draft, and they very well should be. Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of them. This is a guy who, look, he came out and, he had 8 games where he had double-digit targets. This is a guy who, I thought that, with TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift eating up a pretty significant chunk of the team's target share, I didn't think that Amon-Ra St. Brown would see the amount of targets that he did this year, but this dude is clearly the number 1 weapon in the Lions offense. They now got rid of TJ Hawkinson, so, and that should be even more targets for Amon-Ra St. Brown. This guy is absolutely going to explode next season because they're going to build the entire offense around him. I thought that they would build the offense more around DeAndre Swift, but, there were some inconsistencies this year with DeAndre Swift. We had some injuries and everything like that. Make no mistake, next season, the Lions offense is going to run through Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's going to be very fun to watch, and he's going to be a massive league winner. You've got to take this guy if you have the chance. If you're drafting at the back half of the first round, you need to take Amon-Ra St. Brown. Next player on my list is going to be Tony Pollard. Now, this is a guy who averaged 15.6 PPR points a game. Now, everybody made fun of me over last offseason for saying to draft Tony Pollard ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. And I knew that this was going to happen. I knew that Tony Pollard was going to take over the backfield. He is younger, faster, more elusive, and at this point, he's just a significantly more talented running back than Zeke. Now, Zeke still is a very good running back for how much tread he has on the tires. I mean, he's been used up more than any running back in the NFL at this point. But Tony Pollard has the fresh legs. Tony Pollard is younger. He's faster. He's better in every single way. He averages more yards per carry, more yards per touch, more yards per reception. He's a better PPR weapon because he catches more passes. This is a dude who, if he gets to head the Cowboys backfield next year, and we have to keep an eye on this because he's a free agent, but say the Cowboys make Tony Pollard, one of the focal points of the offense, which they already kind of started to do, and he gets to come out and just be the starting running back for us next year. This guy has the easy upside to be the number 1 running back in fantasy. The easy upside to be the number 1 running back in fantasy. He could outperform Austin Eckler and Christian McCaffrey if he heads the Cowboys backfield. Now, obviously, they're still paying Zeke that huge contract. So we're going to have to see what happens with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard over the offseason. We've got to keep a close eye on this because if Tony Pollard ends up heading the Cowboys backfield, he could be hands down the biggest league winner in all of fantasy football. So let's keep a close eye on Tony Pollard. Right now I have him going at the back half of the first round regardless. That's how much confidence I have in him. But if he gets a big contract and the Cowboys make him the lead back, watch out. He's going to go off. Next player on my list is going to be Rhamondre Stevenson. Now, this is a guy who really, took advantage of his opportunities this year. Damian Harris got hurt, and then Rhamondre Stevenson came in as the lead back and showed that he's by far and away the better back. Now, this is a guy that I talked about last offseason a lot as well. I was saying draft Rhamondre Stevenson over Damian Harris. People laughed at me for that. But the fact of the matter is, when there's a more talented running back running behind the person who's the assigned starter, it's just only a matter of time before that running back ends up taking over the backfield. We knew going into the season that Rhamondre Stevenson was the more talented back. It's just that he was a second year. Damian Harris is the veteran, more experienced than, all that, whatever. But we all knew that Rhamondre Stevenson was the more talented back going into the season. What happened? He ended up taking over the backfield. And considering how much this guy is getting targeted out of the backfield, I see kind of potentially like an Austin Eckler-like future for Rhamondre Stevenson. I think that next year, this is a guy who might see 3, 4, even 5 games where he sees double-digit targets out of the backfield. Bill Belichick has all the confidence in the world in Rhamondre Stevenson. This guy is an incredibly efficient runner. He was 7th in the league in yards created this past year. He had 957 yards created, which is basically the amount of yards that you create after first contact. The block creates what you're supposed to run for, and whatever you run for after that, based on breaking tackles and, juking guys out, is your yards created. He was top 7 in the league in yards created despite splitting a backfield for a large majority of the season. So this is a guy who is arguably already a top 5 most talented running back in the NFL. And I think a lot of people don't know it yet, but if you're drafting at the back end of the first round next season and you want to take a running back first, there's a very good chance that Rhamondre Stevenson is the best option available to you at that point in the draft. Next and final player on my list is going to be Travis Kelce. All right, guys, Travis Kelce is old. He's super old, right? This guy is like 7,000 years old. But look, the dude averaged 18.6 PPR points a game from the tight end position. I mean, could there be a better cheat code? Could there be a bigger cheat code in fantasy than Travis Kelce? I don't know, man. He's up there. This guy had 12 touchdowns. He gets force-fed the ball within the red zone. He gets force-fed the ball all over the field, as he was all season. He finishes by far and away the tight end one. Now, I'm not big on taking tight ends early in next year's draft, as I talked about a few videos ago, but Travis Kelce is going to be the exception to this. If you are drafting at the back half of the first round and you feel like there's not a true wide receiver 1 on the board anymore or a true running back 1 on the board anymore, don't be afraid to start your team with the best PPR tight end weapon that we've ever seen in fantasy and take Travis Kelce. This dude is going to be the focal point of the offense again next year in Kansas City. And even though he's older, I don't see him slowing down. This guy is defying all the laws of aging as far as athleticism, being a pass catcher. And I think next year he's going to absolutely explode yet again and be one of the biggest cheat codes in fantasy. All right, guys, I do appreciate you tuning into the video. These are my super early overall rankings for the 2023 season. I do appreciate you guys tuning into the video, and I'll catch you later.